Antarctica and Greenland have lost nearly 5 trillion tons
Antarctica's
of
ice is melting
climate
6
change
times faster than it
turned
was
up the
before.
heat for nearly 2 billion
Climate
people
change.
this summer.
Climate change.
On climate change are happening now.
From 1993 to 2024, the rate of global sea rise has doubled, from just over 2 millimeters to 4.5 every single year. That's 1,625 billion cubic meters of water every year, enough to fill more than 650 million Olympic-sized swimming pools. All of it pouring into our oceans. The source of this water? Our polar ice caps. For millennia, they have pulsed with the rhythm of seasons, expanding, retreating, and expanding again. But now, that rhythm is breaking. Human-driven climate change has pushed the balance beyond its natural bounds. The ice is melting faster than ever before, and with every glacier that collapses, every sheet that fractures and falls into the sea, our oceans rise higher, silently, steadily, reshaping the face of the planet. With that said, hello, I'm Brendan Turner and welcome to my podcast. Today we're diving into a pressing issue, how rising seas are threatening Florida's insular vertebrates, the unique mammals, reptiles, and amphibians that call these shrinking islands home. In the warm, sun-soaked waters of Florida, scattered along its vast coastline, lies hundreds of islands. Some are little more than patches of sand and scrub, others are vibrant mosaics of forest, marsh, and mangrove. On these islands lives Florida's insular vertebrates. More commonly, you could just refer to them as island animals. That's essentially what these animals are. They are endemic to Florida, and they specifically exist strictly on islands. Now, they can have populations in the mainland, but there are populations, the insular vertebrates are dedicated populations on islands. These islands share a tragic fate. On average, they rise less than 1.5 meters above the sea. It's not very much. And today they sit on the front line of one of the greatest environmental threats of our time, the sea level rising. In this study, researchers set out to examine the vulnerability of Florida's coastal islands and the species that call them home. Using predictive models from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, they looked into the future of sea level rise. Using maps from the United States Geological Surveys, they documented the size and shape of many of Florida's islands, and they mapped the locations of 21 endemic island species. That includes rodents, snakes, skinks, and even a single species of deer, the key deer, across the state, all the way from the Panhandle to the Florida Keys. But due to gaps in NOAA's sea level data, nearly 300 islands did have to be omitted from the study. Not that they aren't significant, but lacking data, we can't really use proper predictive methods. They were unable to use proper predictive methods, and so they omitted those islands. With the remaining data, the researchers asked a simple but devastating question. How many islands will be lost, and how many species will be swept away with them? Also could be asked, how many species will be affected by land loss? Because while many islands may not completely disappear in the next 50 to 100 years, they will lose a significant amount of land mass and possibly territory for several species. So, researchers found that by the year 2050, more than 35% of Florida's coastal islands could be completely submerged at high tide. By 2100, over 80, perhaps even 90%, may disappear beneath the waves, gone forever. Nearly half of all the island's land area could be underwater by the middle of this century, and more than 2/3 by the century's end. And of the islands that remain, many are already compromised. Of the 510 predicted to stay above water by 2100, An average of 13% of their land has been altered by human activity, land potentially usable by wildlife. For the animals that live here, the news is bleak. Many species mapped in the study have their entire distribution on these islands: 12 mammals, 7 reptiles, and 15 amphibians. These species, bound to their shrinking worlds, face significant, perhaps total, habitat loss. Species like fossorial snakes, which rely on specific rockland habitats, face extreme danger. Models predict that most of their habitats will vanish by 2028. 3 years. Low-lying coastal rodents could disappear by 2140. While that is considered a long time in human standards, it is a fairly quick extinction, and a tragic fate for many species of rodents. It is predicted that within the century, the key deer and the key marsh rabbit, the icons of the Florida Keys, may lose all of their habitat, sliding into extinction. And that's not just to water loss. That's from human development as well. Even species that live both on islands and the mainland are not completely safe. For habitat loss continues to push them closer to the edge of extinction. Fragmentation, development, pollution, destroying habitats, damaging the biomes that they once called home, and leaving them with a shred of territory to exist. Researchers warn that the loss of Florida's insular biodiversity due to sea level rise has been underestimated. And yet, there is discussion of what might be done. Conservation efforts such as translocation or captive breeding may offer temporary fixes. If there are neighboring islands at low risk of sea level rise or development, some species might be relocated, but the challenges are immense. Policy limitations, disease risk, competition, and the species' own habitat specializations. Unfortunately, for most species, such solution may not come in time. The truth is clear. If the islands vanish, there will be nowhere left for their inhabitants to go. And so we're left with the question, what can we do? The responsibility lies on us. Only by taking meaningful action to reduce our carbon emissions, warming our planet, melting our polar ice caps, and raising our seas, can we hope to protect Florida's islands and the replaceable species that live upon them, and hopefully return the natural legacy of a region unlike any other on Earth. Why should we be concerned about these species being lost? We rely on these species as pollinators, as predators, as prey. Each species that would be lost to the tides is an important part of an ecosystem that we so heavily rely on. If we lose these islands, we lose many species. We don't quite know the effects that this may have, but based on history, we know that the effects could be quite devastating. By losing these species, we also lose tourism, a key source of income in Florida. Economic devastation would be a fraction of the concern from losing these species. This isn't just about wildlife. It's about how humans are reshaping the geography of Florida itself. In conclusion, rising sea levels aren't just flooding our coastlines. They're erasing Florida's biodiversity. It's our responsibility to revert back to a normal system, reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, help protect biodiversity, stop development, and maybe, just maybe, we have a chance of preventing the devastation that will destroy these islands and destroy Florida's insular vertebrates.